having an affair. And so she got a divorce. And those two met up, well, I believe, or I know by the Lord. God put them together. They each had 2 kids. He came to me and asked me if I'd do the wedding. This was probably 12 years ago. And so I said, sure, I'd be glad to do the wedding for you. Now here's the problem. You know, some people just get all bent out of shape because somebody got a divorce. I've married people who've been married 4 times. And I've married them. They want to get married, fine, and they want to go under premarital teaching. I would say though, you know, after you make a couple mistakes, you know, if you try riding a skateboard, and every time you ride a skateboard you break an arm or break a leg, or you could say to yourself, I don't think I'm going to do skateboards no more. I'm going to go to something else. Some people just don't learn. They say, I'm going to get married again. Maybe this time it'll work. If you haven't changed, this time's not going to make a difference. But for these 2 people, it was God that inspired. And so we did the wedding, and part of their wedding ceremony was that each one of them gave the other spouse's kids a medallion and said, not only am I marrying this person or your mom or your dad, I'm marrying you. And I will be there for you, I will watch over you, I will protect you. Now that's wonderful. In a Christian realm, that's the way it's supposed to be. We did a teaching one time on Yours, Mine, and Ours in the marriage seminar. And the reason we did that is because there were a lot of couples that were married and remarried, and guess what? You have their kids, his kids, and our kids. And usually what happens is the our kids takes precedent over the others. The other kids are just left out there. They have nothing. It's like they're forgotten. We've seen it in Teach One to Lead One, haven't we? It's a nightmare. And so we did this teaching. Well, they gave the medallion, which is very spiritual in essence, because it says, you're my child. I am taking responsibility for you, even though I'm not biologically yours. Are you everybody with me? Okay, so they did that. They got married, 12 years, doing wonderful. They even took it to the place, and I just found this out, these are some of the stories, that part of the vows that we do say, may I have the rings, please? You know, and you give the rings. And I say, these rings are gold, they are valuable, they are circular, and they are unending. They are a sign of covenant. I charge you to wear these rings well. Wear them always, don't take them off. And let this be a sign to the community that you are a covenant people, and that you belong not only to the Lord, but to another. Very strong language, right? Well, the daughter tells me, you know, we were in the jewelry store the other day, and I was picking up my ring for my husband, and the jeweler said, ma'am, if you'll go ahead and let me have your rings, I'll clean them for you. She said, oh no, I don't ever take them off. So she asked her mom, what are you talking about? She said, I made a vow that I would never take these rings off, and I have. Now you might think, oh, you know, that's buffoonery, that's foolishness. In her mind, it's not. What she said, she meant. And her marriage is proof of it. Now, they have had a rocky time raising those kids. Let me tell you what else happened. One of the things, you've seen me do marriages before, I know what the threefold cord's all about. I've done the threefold cord before. 2 white strands and 1 red strand. And I have the couples braid. And they have to use 1 hand. The reason we do that is because it's easy to do things with 2 hands. When you have to do it with 1 hand, which means I got to rely on you to do your part, and I'll do my part, they have to work together. And when they're done, that red strand runs through both of them all the way, and then we put an ending on it. Well, we did that at their marriage. The grandmother, who is a spirit-filled, wonderful woman, gave testimony at the wedding, but she said, you know, I never told you about the result of that wedding. She said, I'd like to share if I can. She said, it was the most profound and supernatural wedding I have ever been to. And she said, I have been to a few. She said, everything that was done there was significant. And she said, let me tell you about the threefold cord. She said, later that night, one of the sons, who we think we're going to marry, he's having a little trouble in his life. He was swimming in the pool. He said, Nana, would you take me down to the pool when he goes swimming? She said, sure. So she says, God would have it worked out so nobody's in the pool but me and him. And so she said he swam a few laps, and then he came back and he said, Mama, I really liked that service today. And she said, yeah, it was a good service. He said, I especially, 7 years old, I especially like that part about the ropes and about Jesus being in the center of that. And she said, she explained to him, well, the reason for that is if God's in the center of your marriage will last. But you have to keep God in the center in order to make that thing work. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. She said he took off, swam underwater, swam a few more laps, and he came back and he said, I really like that about Jesus being in the center. And then she started asking some questions about Jesus. Swam a few more laps and came back. She said after every little conversation, he'd swim 2 laps and then he'd come back and he'd have another one. He said, Mama, you think it's possible that Jesus could come live in my heart? And she said, well, sure it is. And she said, would you like to do that? He said, yeah, I really would like to do that. I'd really like to have Jesus living in me. So she said, I prayed a prayer with him. He finished his prayer, he swam off, swam a couple more laps and came back and said, I feel so clean inside. I feel so fresh inside. I feel different. I really feel different. He got born again. So now we fast forward 12 years, he's had some major problems in his life. Made some bad choices in his life. They're a couple. He has a fiancée, and they have a little boy. She has a little boy from a previous marriage. She's not been involved in a Christian home. And when she saw their family, they said at Christmas time and at Thanksgiving, she weeps all the time. She said, I never knew that you could have stuff like this. I've never had a family. We've never celebrated Christmas. I want what you have. So she accepted Christ in her life. Okay, so all that brings us forward to now. All right, so then they called me up and said, would you marry our daughter? So we went on vacation. Kristen got to meet her, and Kristen's friend, we stopped up in Tennessee, and they have a store. We went to the store and saw them and everything like that. And so they made plans. They got married down here on the beach, and then they're having a reception up there. So that's a pretty good story so far. I would say, gosh, what God has done in 12 years. Just from me listening to the Spirit of God and saying, yes, Lord. Being led by the Spirit, not doing it in the flesh. Praying about being led by the Spirit and watching that happen. So I did that. Here comes the wedding. The wedding was absolutely gorgeous. I can't tell you. There was only like maybe 30 people there because it was out of town. It was on the beach right in Ponce Inlet. It was wonderful. And she said to me, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to read the same vows that my mom and dad took when they got married, when you married them. And so I did. Used the same vows, and I told everybody who was there, these are the same vows that her mom and dad took 12 years ago. Now, who's in the midst?
Jesus.
The ex-husband is in the midst. Other people in the midst. The couple that I married when she was 15 years old, she got pregnant to her husband when she was 15. Didn't have an abortion, had the baby. Oh, baby's gorgeous. Her name's Caroline. And so right there in the hospital, the parents talked to the daughter about giving up the child for adoption. She said, we prayed and prayed and prayed, and finally our daughter said yes. If we can find the right couple, I'll give the baby up for adoption. Well, guess who was at the wedding? Guess who was the flower girl? That little girl. And her parents were there. And they did what is called an open adoption. Now, for any of you that don't know what that means at any time, the biological mother can take that child back. That's a toughie. Imagine what it would be like to not be able to have kids, or maybe have kids but want to adopt, and find a beautiful baby and love that baby for whatever years, and then the mom come back and say, I'm ready now. But this couple, they were Christians, and they said, I talked to both of them, they said, we looked at it this way. It's a tremendous opportunity. After we prayed, we felt the Lord say, yes, do this thing. So we went ahead and adopted this baby, knowing that one day we could get that phone call or the letter or a visit that says we're taking the baby back. Now, she visits once a month, but that little girl was the flower girl, happy as could be. So here I am marrying the mom and the dad. Beautiful couple. I spent a little bit of time with them and just a little bit of counseling to find out what they knew. And man, they knew it. It was one of those things that I sat in the booth and talked to them because the dad said, could you just make sure? Not only was I sure, Pastor Dale, I was overwhelmed. I said, this couple has it. This couple will make it. And so we did the wedding thing. Well, we go to the reception. The reception was at a nice restaurant over in Daytona Beach. And they had a private room. They had people sitting around. And so they had nameplates on. Okay? Now remember what I'm saying to you. All the time, being led by the Spirit, being used of God, being in the right place at the right time with the right thing to say. That's the difference. Instead of just haphazardly doing things. And so I went to the reception. We sat down. We were right in the corner, just like where Jeremiah and Nevaeh are. We sat right here. There's a woman that sat where Phyllis sits. And, you know, we don't know anybody. I know the parents, and I know those, but that's it. I don't know anybody else there. And so we struck up a conversation. I would say, hey, how are you today? And you say, good. I say, my name's Vince, and he would tell me his name. Well, that's what we did to this lady. And I won't mention her name. They were talking about storms and about the storms that had come through and what they did. And so there's two guys sitting over here. And I have a little radar on. You know what radar is? Radar can detect certain things. My radar is detecting there's a relationship going on right here. Did everybody know what I'm saying without me going in for it? Okay. So that's okay. And Phyllis picked up on it. They said, yeah, when the storm came to our house, I was outside checking out the weather, but he was in the bathtub. We said, okay, enough said there. We know what's going on right here. So that's going on. And then across the other, this lady right here, we start talking to her and a little bit, and then we come to find out she lost her husband. He died of cancer, right? And died pretty quickly. She said within a month he was gone. And so they worked together. She said, I was married once before. She said it didn't work out, had an abusive situation, alcohol and stuff. And she said, but listen, she said, I met the man of my dreams. She said, we were married for 2 years. And then, you know, somehow it was his time to go. She said, but I remained strong through it. And Phyllis said to her, are you a Christian? She said, I've never made it without the Lord. And she had strong faith. I mean, just listen to her talk. Just amazing about how she had prayed. And can you imagine what it would be like to go through something like that? And here she's still being healed in the healing process. And we were able to talk to her about, this is what God does.